The human ship Silent Harbor was never designed to save lives. It was a support vessel built for hauling supplies and repairing stations, not landing on broken worlds or treating the sick. Commander Rachel stood on the bridge, staring at a blinking signal on her console. The distress beacon was weak, unstable, and clearly old. "Commander," the navigation officer said carefully, "we're far off route. Protocol says we forward this to command and move on." Rachel didn't look away from the screen. The signal showed dozens of life signs. Most were fading fast. "They won't survive long enough for help," she said quietly. "Change course." The ship adjusted, engines straining as it turned toward the dying planet below. The surface was worse than expected. Broken streets stretched between frozen buildings. Wind screamed through empty alleys. The remains of a settlement sat buried under ice and ash. As the ship descended, Rachel zoomed in on movement near the street level. Small shapes. Too small. "Oh no," someone whispered. They weren't soldiers. They were cubs. 67 of them, scattered across the streets and doorways. Some huddled together for warmth. Others lay motionless in the snow. Their scaled skin looked dull and cracked. Many were barely breathing. "There's Sarnyx," an officer said. "Enemy species." Rachel felt the weight of that word. Enemy. The Sarnyx had fought humans for 20 brutal years. Cities burned on both sides. The war ended, but the damage remained. And now their children were dying alone. The landing ramp slammed down before the ship fully settled. Rachel ran out with a medkit, boots hitting frozen pavement. The air burned her lungs. The first cub she reached was shaking violently. His eyes opened when she touched him. "Human," he rasped. "Why here?" "We heard your call," Rachel said, scanning him. "What happened?" "War," he replied. "Elders said this place was safe. Said they'd return." "How long ago?" she asked. 2 seasons. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. "Nearly a year. They're not coming back," she said softly. The cub collapsed. Rachel caught him before he fell. "All hands," she shouted into her comm. "Medical emergency. Bring everyone inside. Now." Before we dive into the story, let us know where you are watching from in the comments and subscribe, because I will be sharing something special tomorrow. The cargo bay became a hospital within minutes. Blankets covered the floor. Emergency heaters blasted warmth. Crew members worked without pause, treating frostbite, infection, and severe hunger. That's when Rachel counted them properly. 67 cubs. Some cried softly. Some stared in silence. 2 were already gone. Once the worst was stabilized, Rachel addressed the crew. Food became the next problem. On the second day, supplies dropped fast. Human rations weren't made for Sarnyx biology. The ship wasn't meant to carry children, let alone enemy children. By the third night, the navigation officer approached Rachel quietly. "We can't keep this up," he said. "If we continue feeding them, we won't have enough to make it home." Rachel looked through the bay window. Cubs slept in rows, finally warm for the first time in months. "Then we eat less," she said. "They've eaten nothing." No one argued. Crew members skipped meals, then skipped rest. Engineers rerouted power to heat the bay. The cook broke down emergency packs and learned how to make them safe for Sarnyx digestion. 2 cubs died anyway. Rachel sat with one until the end, holding his clawed hand while his breathing faded. One cub recovered faster than the others. His name was Ashen. He limped when he walked, but he watched everything with sharp eyes. On the 5th day, Ashen found Rachel alone on the bridge. "Why do this?" he asked. "Your kind fought mine." Rachel turned to face him. "Because you're a child. My people would not do this for yours," Ashen said. "Then someone has to choose differently," she replied. "That is weakness," he said. "No," Rachel answered firmly. "Protecting the helpless is strength." Ashen said nothing, but he didn't argue again. 17 days later, Silent Harbor barely reached human space. The ship ran on emergency power. The crew looked exhausted. The cargo bay held 65 living cubs. The station froze when they saw who was aboard. Then the Sarnyx arrived. The adults fell to their knees before Rachel, a gesture of respect in their culture. Families reunited. Peace talks followed. Real ones. As Ashen boarded his people's ship, he turned back. "I will remember," he said. "So will we," Rachel replied. As the bay doors closed, exhaustion finally hit her. But so did pride. Humanity had every reason to walk away. They didn't. Rachel stayed on the observation deck long after the Sarnyx transport pulled away. The dock grew quiet again. The echoes of hurried footsteps faded. Only the low hum of the silent harbor remained. Crew members moved slowly now, exhaustion finally catching up with them. Some sat against the walls. Others leaned on railings, staring into space. No one spoke. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Command would question her decisions. Politicians would argue. Some would say she risked a human ship for enemy lives. Others would call it reckless. Rachel already knew that. She also knew she would do it again. A junior officer approached her hesitantly. "Commander, do you think this will matter?" In the long run, Rachel watched the distant stars for a moment. "Maybe not today," she said. "Maybe not tomorrow. But those kids will grow up knowing someone chose not to let them die." The officer nodded slowly. Across the station, Sarnyx families held their cubs tightly. Some cried openly. Others stood silent, claws resting protectively on small shoulders. The hatred that once defined them had cracked, just a little. Ashen looked back once more before disappearing down the corridor. His posture was straighter now, stronger. Rachel felt something settle in her chest. Not relief, not victory, conviction. Humanity had learned to build weapons, ships, armies. But its most dangerous trait wasn't violence. It was mercy, the kind that refused to ask who deserved saving, the kind that chose children over history. And that, Rachel knew, was the choice that would echo far longer than any war ever could. Later, as the silent harbor prepared to depart, Rachel filed her report. She didn't soften the risks or hide the losses. She wrote the truth. 67 found, 65 saved, 2 buried among the stars. When she finished, she paused before sending it. History would decide whether her choice was brave or foolish. Rachel didn't care. She looked once more at the empty cargo bay, still warm from borrowed heat, and felt certain of one thing. Saving those cubs hadn't weakened humanity. It had defined it.